Welcome to today's Member Forum meeting. First, some safety information. As usual, I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedure. There is no fire alarm scheduled, so if you hear one, please exit the building from the nearest exit and congregate by the cathedral. So, full details of the questions submitted to Member Forum and the Mayor's written replies were published on the Council website. Groups have submitted their questions in priority order and are presented rotating around the party groups. Each councillor has a maximum of 2 questions about one topic or 2 separate questions about 2 different topics. Councillors have a maximum of 2 supplementary questions. If a councillor asks 1 question, they have 1 supplementary. If a councillor asks 2 questions, they can ask 1 supplementary per question asked. So, straight in, we have the Greens first question. Councillor McCarthy.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, for your answer and providing overview various intervention and investment being made to address knife crime through early intervention and prevention measure. Could you elaborate on how effectiveness of the initiative is being evaluated and monitored, particularly in terms of the impact of reduction incidents of knife crime in Bristol, especially we've seen, since the beginning of the year, 4 victims. Our condolences to their loved one. And since last year, the number of knife crime in Bristol.
Sorry, Councillor McCarthy, can I get you to ask a question?
Yes,
sorry.
I'm asking the question now. So, particularly in terms of impact and reducing incident knife crime and improving community safety outcome.
So it's about the outcomes of it, how it's monitored. Well, we'll have a number of measures about what's going on in the city. Just on a very blunt level, there will be people who will feed in that knives have been taken off of people. So if you look at Mario from Trojan Free Fighters at the bottom of the M32, Mario will send me notes when he's taken, when knives have been taken off young people. Same with Des, Growing Futures, same with Empire Fighting Chance. So each of those different organisations and networks would be monitoring it. We have a quality of life survey within the city as well for that broader question of how safe do people feel within the city. And it's a point that Steve Chalk made a couple of weeks ago at the cathedral. We're not just working to prevent knife crime. We're working to build community. It's not a deficit model. It's an asset, building assets within the city as well. So those are key. There is a conundrum at the heart of public health approaches anyway as well. It's very difficult to prove that something didn't happen because you did something, right? To prove that negative. And actually, we talked to Pally from the University of Bristol just last week. One of the things that we asked the University of Bristol to do is with their policy team and their intellectual firepower, can they put it at the disposal of the city? So being more rigorous and insightful and using data better was at the heart of a meeting we had last Friday. Universities, police, voluntary sector, all together in City Hall. So we're constantly reviewing the data. By the way, just one final thing, what we did talk about in that was not just how we use quantitative data, which we had lots of, but how we make much better use of qualitative data as well in the normal course of events, and how that can be used to guide deployment of resources for Bristol.
Thanks, Marvin. Do you have a second supplementary question, Councillor McCarthy?
Yes, about the Castle Park and giving the importance of the community input and stockholder engagement in this process. Could you elaborate on the specific mechanism on opportunities for local resident and park user to contribute their idea and feedback for the project? Please, thanks.
For Rawnsley Park, did you say? Castle Park?
That's the second question for Castle Park. If you got it in
Well, they
front
can, for any ideas like that, they can feed in through the local councillors. There'll be a channel to feed directly into my office, and there's obviously opportunities to feed into our community development team. But I do want to keep it cordial on that, but I just do need to offer the challenge. Any initiatives we take in Bristol to tackle any of the major challenges we have and to take any of the opportunities that are before us have to be paid for. And it's a bit of a challenge if, as a party, you're asking what resources are being allocated when you've never supported a budget. So because you have to at some point make a decision about what you're going to spend your money on. Like Joe Biden said, don't tell me what you believe, show me what your budget says. And as yet, the only people who have supported a budget to go through are on the benches here and actually in the far left-hand corner there. So you're going to at some point have to start making a decision about what you want to do with the finite Bristol City Council resources that we have, and cannot just rely on making declarations without making decisions about finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I now move to Labour's first question? Councillor Breckles.
Yeah, thank you for your answers. They were supposed to have got in as two separate questions, I believe, but okay, I'll ask. So the two supplementaries are going to be quite different, but okay. First one, going forward, what action will a council need to take to boost not just the nighttime economy, but small businesses and the high streets as well?
Well, I think there's two things about a whole bunch of things around nighttime economy and the economy in general. First off, we need to continue doing what we're doing, making specific support available whenever we can. Protected music venues, Agent of Change, for example, was a direct intervention. I know Marley was involved in that, and Kerry McCarthy was heavily involved in that, Nicola Beach as well. Also making sure that the developments we bring through the regen, we build safety into those streets as well, so people feel safe to be out. And by the way, just this is another intervention. Nighttime economy isn't just about music; it's people that work through the night as well, like health staff, for example, at the hospitals. So pretty comprehensive. But there's another aspect of it that sometimes we don't think of. I do think it's our job as government to intervene in the economy. But it is also our job just to create the conditions within which the economy can get done what it wants to get done. Affordable homes, decent public transport system, investing in our infrastructure. But certainly, I would go back to that delivery of affordable homes so that people who work in the nighttime economy can actually live within Bristol is absolutely essential. And we're working on all those fronts. We're also obviously working through the combined authority as well as we look at the skills pipeline, supporting hospitality, sector as well to make sure that the skills are coming through. We did a really interesting piece of work with Josh Eggleton a while ago. He's doing some amazing stuff, training and supporting people into the hospitality sector, obviously a key part of the nighttime economy.
Thank you. Fabian, do you have a second?
Yeah, the second one on the issue of energy efficiency and our leadership on climate change. What are the risks to all the action we're taking on climate change now going forward?
Sorry, the risk to the action we must take?
No, the risks to the action that we've already got in train.
Oh, the risks to it? Well, this goes back to a point I've made often in the chamber. I mean, when the proposal was first brought to us in the chamber about declaring a climate emergency, I think there was a line in there that said, all you need is political will. And we said, no, you need political will and about £16 billion. I was with a climate engineer from Exeter University just on Saturday, and we talked about this. We've got the technology to solve 80% of the problem. What we don't have is the financial vehicles to get that technology rolled out. So I'd say that what we must point out is, I guess, the big risk to delivery is securing that investment. And importantly, it's important to understand that that investment is not just public sector investment. It cannot be delivered without private finance. And that's all the work we've been doing with City Leap, but also with 3CI and with Jeffrey Sachs, his chair. We're part of the Global Sustainable Development Goals Finance Commission as well. So to get money into the hands of cities to deliver. That financial flow I think is our key risk.
Thank you. Councillor Eddy, you have a couple of questions. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, can I thank the Mayor for his considered replies? I've got two questions. One, when is it proposed for the dormouse surveys to be commenced and concluded?
Yeah, thanks for your question there. So we anticipate this will be included through the course of the year. So we're going to put out 50 tubes will be placed in hedges and scrubland around the site and then checked every month, May, June, July, August, September and October for signs of dormouse activity. And this level of checking is needed. So we'll have those results for October.
Thank you very much, Matt. Question two. I appreciate the recent damage was not on council-owned land, but it does form part of the SNCI. Surely planning enforcement has a role here rather than purely natural England.
Yeah, thank you. And obviously got a lot of support from our legal team on this, Councillor Eddy. So our enforcement powers relate mainly to breaches of planning control. And as a planning application is not active on this site, the protection that policy DM19 affords to land with regards to the sites of nature conservation interest cannot apply, as there is not a planning proposal which can be tested against the policy. But the council's ecologist, tree and enforcement officers visited the site. They've observed the hedgerow damage from Airport Road and the public rights of way east and west of UG Farm. And they have passed their findings to the police to investigate, as this is a police matter outside the council's powers. And it's against the law, importantly, to note that to deliberately capture, injure or kill hazel dormice, to damage, destroy a dormice resting place or breeding site, to deliberately or recklessly disturb a hazel dormice while it's a structural place of shelter or protection, to block access to structures or places of shelter or protection, or possess, sell, control or transport live or dead hazel dormice or parts of hazel dormice. So we're working, obviously, doing our best with the powers we've got and cooperating with the police.
With the Lord Mayor's permission, could I just say a few personal words? Obviously, we've had these just members forum for about 8 long years. In truth, very rarely have we actually agreed in that time. Mind you, that shouldn't be a surprise to you because I rarely agree with my own national government, so there we are. But I do believe it would be remiss not to say thank you for your service and also the best of luck after May.
Thank you, Richard.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Kent, you have the Liberal Democrats' first questions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Supplementary to answer one. So, as I'm sure you're aware, Mr Mayor, GP services are very stretched across South Bristol as it is, and with a substantial amount of extra housing being delivered now, can you tell us, is there a firm commitment from the Integrated Care Board to deliver a new GP practice in South Bristol with a clear timetable? And if so, what is that timetable? Thank you.
So first off, I'm just talking to Stephen, who returns. No, there's not a firm commitment yet, but that's the point of, again, the full potential promise of that integration is to make sure that we get alignment and we get more influence over health and they get more influence over us. So it's always a negotiation, but obviously it's an NHS decision and NHS resources with the care board. I just do want to pick up, because I think if you just forgive me for it as well, on this point that often comes up about housing and NHS resources and access to GPs. It's important to recognise that housing is a health intervention. So when we talk about putting houses in and there's not enough health facilities, actually a quality home in a balanced community that's affordable and warm actually takes pressure off the National Health Service. The number of cases that go into the NHS, both for physical health and ill health and mental ill health, because they are housing related, causes an unprecedented burden. So we do have an opportunity here, by delivering for housing, to deliver a virtuous circle that will free up more NHS resources to proactively invest in the communities coming through as well. It's important that we make sure that the public narrative is not homes versus NHS resources.
Thank you, Tim. Do you got a second question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with that, but obviously that's where planning is important and making sure the services are in place when needed. It's my understanding that the Integrated Care Board has now taken over some responsibility with regard to dental provision, which obviously we do have some influence within. So less than 60% of children have seen a dentist in Bristol in the last year. Can we persuade the Integrated Care Board to ensure every child in this city has an NHS dentist?
So their powers are limited. Obviously, they control some resource, and we clearly want to work with them on dental health. And again, look at our own public health team. We know that dental health is one of the single most effective symbols of population health, individual, as well. Anyway, so we'll keep going with that. I mean, I did reference in my answer, I think, that the university, we've worked with the university as well, and they've brought through more dental service as well that are accessible to people in the city, and we hope that will be a support, and obviously the ongoing work on oral hygiene as well. I would just suggest, by the way, that you can attend. You can go along and communicate with the ICB directly yourself. The other forum to come and raise these concerns and make sure minds are focused, from your perspective, is with the Health and Wellbeing Board that's currently chaired by Helen. Asha, I see you indicating.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the ICB and representatives from the board regularly come and report on dental health, dental facilities and services that are being provided for our children in care. So, and they have reported that they will report very quickly of some work that they have actually been doing internally to ensure that all of our children, and particularly our children in care, as a corporate parent, have access to a dentist. So watch this space. They are actually working very hard on trying to ensure that every child in the city has access.
Thank you both. Councillor McAllister, your question on Western Harbour and traffic restrictions.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I thought that I had supplementary, but on further reflection, I do not. So, perhaps surprisingly, I'm going to agree with Councillor Eddy and thank the Mayor for his responses to my questions and previous ones I've submitted, and wish him the best for the future. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Labour's second question. Councillor Ali.
Hi, thank you, Lord Mayor. Could the Mayor please update us about Barton House?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I think I've given quite exhaustive list here. The works have been completed on Barton House. The hotel where residents were temporarily accommodated is now empty. The contract came to an end for that hotel on March the 8th. We currently have 2 residents in serviced accommodation by agreement, and these arrangements actually came to end on 11th. We also had 9 households who made homelessness applications. 3 of them have received a not homeless decision, and 6 have been provided with temporary accommodation across the city, pending those decisions. As I set out, I think we've handled this very challenging situation in very challenging times as well as we could. Constant flow of information, community development workers on the ground, large-scale financial support, and I'm pleased to say that the works proceeded and we moved incredibly quickly. It was an unfortunate truth that our efforts to do the works were impeded. Initially, the stairwell was blocked when our contractors went in to start to put the fireproofing in and do work on the ties. And we also had residents being urged not to cooperate, with one resident in particular refusing to allow access to their flat for us to do the work, which held the whole block up. Well, would have if we hadn't got in. And then obviously we had someone arrested for stealing fire alarms that we had laid out to deploy across Barton House, which was one of the requirements of making the block safe for residents to return as well. And a fair amount of misinformation and agitation. But apart from that, I think I really want to applaud our council officers for doing kind of extraordinary work over the last few months.
Councillor Ali, did you have a second supplementary?
I do. Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Marvin. This question is for Councillor Emma. I heard from residents of Barton House that a Green Party candidate is the person who was responsible for.
Councillor Ali, sorry, I'm going to have to stop you. Your question is to the Mayor.
Oh, okay, sorry, okay, yeah. Basically, I've heard that there's a Green Party candidate who is arrested and has prevented people returning to Barton House. So I just wanted to find out if that is the reality or if that is just a rumor.
Sorry, whether a candidate was arrested for preventing people from taking the fire alarms?
Basically, he...
Hang on. Let's... Okay, yeah, can you please?
It's probably best to direct that question to the Green Group then.
Yeah, okay, that's enough of this. We'll move on. Apologies. Conservative second question, Councillor Weston.
Yet again, I'm not the controversial one. There's still time. Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. And thank you to the Mayor for his answers. I think some confusion's got in, and I'm more than happy to take part of it on the chin. When the Cribbs Patching New Neighbourhood was first signed, the landowner agreement was signed, which pooled Section 106. There were 6,500 homes planned on the site. 2 weeks ago, the YTL portion of that site went from 2,700 homes to 6,500. So they've added another 4,000 homes to the site. Now, when the Section 106 agreements were signed, Bristol negotiated with South Gloss to get a portion of that south of the border. I'm just asking, has the council entered into negotiations with South Gloss to get a portion of the new Section 106, because they're building another 4,000 homes, to come south of the border? Have we had any discussions with South Gloss to increase the amount of Section 106 coming into Bristol?
I'll have to check how we're apportioning that. Obviously, we work with a combined authority and through those structures as well to try and manage the whole development. I will say more. I mean, it's an incredible amount of pressure coming to that part of the city, 6,500 homes. With all those people moving there, if only we had some way of moving masses of people around the city without bringing more pressure to our road network, be great. What trains don't train. Well, I mean, it's calling out trains. Trains are a very inflexible means of moving people around. And what you would have with a mass transit system that was delivered is something that could actually stop every minute or two. Starting and stopping a train wouldn't necessarily work like that on a regional basis. But some form of mass transit system to cope with the regeneration, the housing delivery that we not only want but need for a growing population, I think would be one of the key ways of making sure that the growth of our region does not end up undermining the prosperity and sustainability of our region as well.
Yes, if only we did. However, as you point out, the 60 million in Section 106 is probably about 2% of the cost of an underground. So the pot probably isn't large enough. But my second question, and I was trying not to be controversial, my second question was if we're going to have negotiations with South Gloss over the revised Cribbs Patching neighbourhood with the higher thresholds, and we're asking them to increase the amount of Section 106 flowing south of the city, can we look at the secondary junctions? We focus just on the main roads, but traffic will flow like water, and that'll impact Horfield, Southmead, Henleys, Westbury, Henbury, Avonmouth and Lawrence Weston. It's the secondary junctions I think we need to. So when we have those negotiations, can you please think of the secondary junctions as well, please?
Definitely, Mark. And in fact, I have my final WECA meeting on Friday, this Friday, and there are a number of things that I'll be sharing at that WECA meeting that that is a to-do list that WECA must continue, must deliver for us. I mean, I'll share with you again just some of the challenges of working cross-border. It was only I'd been working with Toby Savage for probably a year and a half on delivering a park and ride for the M32. Again, one of the ways of taking pressure off our road network coming into the city, made real progress. So only a couple of weeks ago, I heard from South Gloss without even informing me that they were no longer going to support the M32 park and ride. So so that adds more. That just is kind of illustrative of the challenges that we face working cross-border and why we need that combined authority to work effectively and bring us together around shared goals. I take the point about the controversy. I don't actually think of mass transit's controversy. I think that the overground would be controversial once you start CPO inland and closing Gloucester Road and Church Road to have it going up and down it. But let's have a final hoorah and we'll have a chat about the viability of a mass transit system for the city region.
Thank you. Councillor Hornchin.
Thank you for the answers, Mayor. I don't have a supplementary for the first question. That sounds very interesting with the cycle path, and I look forward to that. I have a second supplementary question for my second question on housing. I heard that there's some good news about figures of housing. Could you please enlighten us about that were released today?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
In the second question was about housing and about empty housing, but I heard that there would be some good news figures about housing today and the housing numbers. Could you enlighten us on those new numbers?
Sorry, it was echoey. Our echo. We have to get some curtains hung up in here or something. No, it's a good day actually. Actually, let me as the housing on lead on delivery. Let me let Tom bring us that, if that's okay, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. So really pleased to share that we're on track to deliver 14,500 homes over the 8 years of this administration, and we're expecting to deliver around 600 affordable homes this year, which we believe to be the best result in 2 decades in the city. So we're really seeing affordable housing and housing delivery continue to ramp up despite what has been some significant economic challenges with construction inflation, COVID, war in Ukraine, and so on. So, it's some really good news for us, and we'll continue that work.
Councillor Hornchin, did you have a second supplementary? Thank you. Councillor Galandras.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor, and thank you, Marvin, for being very frank in your response. I mean, Bristol Waste, it's probably the most complained about service I get at the moment. And it's only been over the last sort of 5-6 months since November when they did the rerouting, and I'd have thought the rerouting should have settled down by now, and yet there are still problems. What do you think is behind all these problems? Are there any systemic issues, do you think, Marvin?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll come in. We were, like I say, we're frank with you. We're not hiding. We're not particularly happy because people aren't happy, and we're also recipients of the service ourselves. So we kind of get a sense what's going on. I also want to recognise that it's our company has faced some real challenging times over recent years as well. Our sense at the moment is this a logistical challenge that they're facing. What we have asked them to do is come back to us with firm plans and options actually on those plans, not just with one plan that we say yes or no to, but a number of options on how this could be solved and we get a service that the City of Bristol needs and deserves. Marley was indicating as well. Can I just allow Marley to, because this now is in his cabinet brief as well.
Thank you, Marvin. Yeah, I sympathise with the experiences of your residents and would agree. There's definitely ongoing problems. As Marvin alluded to, we're working very hard with Bristol Waste to try and find some solutions to that. But as I think the answer said, there's this pressure on a particular day, and we're trying to sort of find a solution to that. There was always going to be some teeth and issues after the reroute, but we're just trying to find that final solution, and then hopefully the residents will see an improved quality of service.
John, do you have a second question?
No further supplementaries. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Next up, Councillor Pearce is not with us. So, Councillor Morris, your question, please.
No supplementaries, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Massey is not with us. So, Councillor Hucker, do you have a supplementary?
No, I don't, but I would just like to thank the Mayor for his answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith, do you have supplementary questions?
Yeah, I do. Thank you for the response to this. Good news that the work is getting progressed. Can I press, though, for a little more detail on timetable? I appreciate we don't know yet when we'll see spades in the ground. That's fair enough. It's still happening. But can you give me a sense of when we might know when things are going to happen, when the repricing and the contracting work will be done, and we will see a programme?
Well, we'll go from here and we'll ask for a proper, a schedule as well. I mean, it has been one of the things that we've pushed into our own organisation here, that when we ask for a date, don't give us a season or an epoch of time. Actually, give us a deadline, and if we miss the deadline, we miss the deadline, but give us a deadline. So allow me to go back and come to you with a bit more of a schedule. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
No second questions, Steve?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Councillor Gollop.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll preface my remarks by sending Marvin my best wishes. We've had our differences over the years, but it doesn't stop me wishing you well for the future. But I'm sorry to say it doesn't stop me from asking some supplementary questions either. I'm particularly concerned on the issue with regard to travellers or van dwellers, and we're getting very confusing messages. You're telling us that the area on the Downs is a low impact area, and yet your own waste officers are saying that they will not collect fly tipping from that area because they do not feel safe in doing so. That worries me, and it worries me in the context of you using a text from kicking the can down the road. I would like to ask you, Mayor, who is kicking the can down the road? It feels very much as though you are by not taking action on this critical issue.
No one's kicking the can down the road. I mean, a number of things. If people are saying they won't pick up fly tips and litters, then let us know. This is not something we're, aware of. The assessment of it being low impact is also a function of the city we have. It's a 42 square mile city with a lot of competition for land, a lot of very densely packed residential streets, and on top of that, a housing crisis in which the demographic, it's important to know this, the demographic of people living in vehicles and caravans is switching from people who may have made it as a lifestyle choice to people who were living in there as a last resort because of poverty and as a result of the housing crisis. That creates a whole different kind of dynamic around how we would respond to it and what we do with them. And what I've made clear, and when we worked through it with some of your councillors for the area as well, and I think we did a really fair job with them, sharing our officers' research and looking through various options and the ups and downs of each one. And I hope that showed respect for their priorities. But what I very honestly said at the end was that the kind of interventions that they would advocate for were not the kind of interventions I would be able to advocate for, just because we have a different approach. And so we'll do what we can to bring forward meanwhile sites. We're bringing forward one at Sea Mills. Not always easy to bring forward because you have to put facilities on them as well. Also, we can't force people to move on to meanwhile sites, but we want to treat people in our vehicles with the same due care that we treat everyone else in the city. And so that means striking a balance between punitive action that we may, or actually is very limited, available to us, but also the supportive action that we may take to support them in their physical, mental health and into permanent housing, which is why Tom's sharing of the fantastic numbers on housing delivery, again, is so important to so many challenges we face in the city, including van dwellers. So we're dealing with the issue in the moment with the scale of the challenge we face with the resources that we have at our disposal.
Jeff, did you have a second question?
Yeah, supplementary to the second question, my Lord Mayor. We have a real understanding of you not wishing to be punitive in terms of the van dwellers, but we also believe that we shouldn't be punitive on those residents who are reporting significant troubles arising from that encampment. I'm also concerned about your report in terms of Pembrokeshire County Council. I'm very glad that your officers made contact with someone in the housing department, and I'm sure that was very effective. But actually, if one looks at the Pembrokeshire County Council website, under car
Jeff,
park,
do you want to get to the question, mate?
Yeah, I do, my
Thank
Lord
you.
Mayor. Under motorhomes, it says that motorhomes may park in any council car park. But it also says cooking and sleeping in motorhomes overnight is not permitted. So I don't know what the point was in speaking to Pembrokeshire County Council if that key piece of information was not relayed to you and your office. Please, will you support an introduction of a similar restriction in terms of on-street parking in and around the city?
But first off, though, a lot of people are not in motorhomes, and this again limits the powers that are available. There are powers that are available in a limited way to tackle people with motorised vehicles, but if people in caravans, they fall outside that. And so even Pembrokeshire's actions wouldn't happen. And the point of talking to other authorities is to obviously share what they have done. I mean, lots has been said about different authorities, banning people from different areas, and we're finding out that that's not actually what's happened. And it's also worth bearing in mind that Pembrokeshire is a very, very different place to Bristol. I mean, I don't need to describe the differences. It's incredibly different. Not just, at least in terms of housing pressures as well. And so we'll look at other areas, we'll listen to what's gone on, but we'll deal with Bristol as Bristol is, with the skills, compassion that Bristol has, not just try and carbon copy and paste what their areas have done. And I think what we've seen in in the reports back that talks about the way we've approached it is that we have led on this area well, particularly when you look at other major cities like Leeds and Brighton. And we're proud of that. That doesn't, but as I shared with your fellow councillor Smith the other week, this comes in the context of a housing crisis. The housing crisis will look like something at some point. And one of the things the housing crisis looks like, on top of a cost of living crisis, and I will say driving down of local government resources and a failure to support local government to build homes over the last 14 years, are people living in caravans and vehicles where they can't afford to be part of our housing stock in our society. And that's part of a national problem that we're dealing with locally.
Thank you. And unless my eyesight deceives me, Councillors Alexander and Scott are not here. So, Kevin, your question. Do you have a supplementary?
No, thank the Mayor for his response, but no further questions.
Okay, moving swiftly on. I don't think Councillor Windows is with us. Councillor Scott? No. Councillor Geeta? Councillor Michelat? No. Okay, I'll now take members' statements in order of receipt. I remind members that a maximum of 1 minute will be allowed for the presentation of each statement, and there will be no debate on the statements. They will be referred to the Mayor for consideration. I can see Councillor Bowles is not with us. Councillor Dyer, you have 1 minute to present.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not going to repeat my statement. It's there for people to read it. There is a further decision to be made about the safety valve. If and when that comes to Cabinet, we will scrutinise that decision. If it comes after the election, then it will be automatically scrutinised as part of the new system. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Councillor McCarwey, your statement on sea mills.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. I stand before you today with heavy heart to address the tragic event that have deep and shaken our community. The recent death of 3 innocent children in sea mill have left us all reeling with grief and disbelief. First and foremost, I want to send my condolences to the family and extend my heartfelt thanks to the emergency service for their swift response and tireless effort in the face of the heartbreaking tragedy. Their professionalism and compassion during such challenging circumstances are truly commendable. I also want to express my gratitude to Bristol City Council Community Department for their unwavering support and assistance in providing specialist care and support to the family affected by the devastating loss. To the residents of Seamale, your strength, solidarity, and kindness in coming together to support one another during this difficult time have been nothing short of remarkable. Your sense of community and unity is a beacon of hope amidst...
Sorry, Councillor McCarthy. Can you wrap up a little bit, please? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I must also acknowledge the invaluable role played by the church and Mr. Yo for organizing the vigil in Seamale Square, providing space for collective mourning. Reflecting into the incident, it's an undearly cause. You must...
I'm sorry, Councillor McCarthy. I know it's a very emotive subject, but I'm going to have to stop you. You've had 1 minute and 40 seconds already. Apologies. Okay, that concludes the statements and questions and ends the meeting. Thank you all.